Good morning, guys, and welcome back. I'm Panda Bennett, and today on the trial of Jessica the Story Witch, we will be discussing Welsh Witchcraft and Astromagick. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. I watch your channel all the time. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I watch your channel all the time as well too, so I'm very excited.
And
I think
so,
this is such a cool idea.
yeah, I know from around the world, being connected is its own kind of magic. It's in morning time for me, it's afternoon for you. You're in the middle of a hailstorm.
Yeah, it is properly hailing down. So I did say, like, my kids and husband are supposed to be taking the dog out so I can have a bit of peace and quiet to chat, mainly because of the dog, not so much for the kids. They're pretty good. But I don't know if I can, I probably won't even show it if I show you. No, you can't see
No, I
it.
can't
But it
see.
is belting down with hail. So I'm hoping that they don't actually go because it would be a bit crazy. But...
Yeah. Okay, so I watch your channel, but can you go ahead and share with everyone if you have any labels, if you like what you consider your path, like if it's green magic or if you don't really, yeah, just tell us about you.
Sure. So I started my path quite a while ago now when I was a teenager. I'd known really all my life that there was something a little bit different because I, you know, I had a lot of spirit contact as a child, and so I kind of knew that there was something a little bit unusual. And then I kind of formalized that when I became a teenager. And at that time, most of the information available was Wiccan based stuff, even though it wasn't explicitly Wiccan necessarily the way it was kind of described. So that was the main thing that I kind of got into. But that was like in the early 90s. And so, well, late 80s, early 90s. So now I consider my path quite different. It's really hard with labels because obviously different labels mean different things to certain people. And, you know, if you call yourself like a green witch, then that doesn't mean that you only use plants in your path necessarily, you know. So I see myself, I suppose, an animist witch because spirit work is very important to me. And a Welsh witch because the kind of spirits here of this place are really important to me as well. And like aspects of traditional witchcraft as well. Like I don't just work with pagan spirits and deity. I do work with the ones that my ancestors for like a couple of thousand years here in Britain would have worked with, which is Christian deity as well. So yeah, it's definitely eclectic, but I feel that magic has been pretty much eclectic to its whole history because if it works, then use it, you know. So yeah, I haven't really got a good label.
Yeah, so you're just like kind of like I'm a witch or I'm me, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you have been practicing since you were a teenager. What was practicing then versus what you do now for like daily magic, or how has it shifted for you?
Well,
And
when
let
I
me say before, I'm sorry, let me just say not everyone has daily magic. You don't have to have daily magic or, specific things. Doing laundry is magical because we're magical beings. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's I when I first started, I tended to not have like a proper daily practice. I think I didn't have a lot of confidence in having my own private practice. I felt like I probably needed, and I did look to try and find if there was like a coven nearby, or when I first had access to the internet, then a little bit later on, I like searched out covens, but like they were all in America. I couldn't find anything. Like I'm sure there were lots of things close to me, but not online, you know. There wasn't a facility.
It wasn't connected. You wasn't connected
No,
like that back
no,
then. No.
it wasn't. And I think the difference then, like it's difficult starting out always, I suppose, because you have to kind of find your own path and your confidence and stuff. But the difficulties I had then of like almost like lack of resources compared to now, where there's like an overwhelm of resources and it's trying to be discerning when you don't really know how to discern yet. So it's difficult for different reasons. So yeah, I kind of found my way into doing things just by myself, and with a couple of friends sometimes, but usually just by myself. And so it wouldn't be daily, it would literally be like on a full moon, or on a season change and things like that. And or if I needed to, like if it was a spell or something, it's because I needed it now, so I didn't know about timing very much and stuff like that then, so it was just ad hoc as and when. So then when I went to university, it was really cool because I did manage to meet up then with some of the people with sort of similar interests and things like that. And I learned more about the moon and started to learn more about astrology, which I'd only like sort of superficially looked at when I was a teenager. And that opened up a whole kind of new world for me then. And my practice was a lot to do with astrology then. So I was doing it tied my kind of rituals to the moon, so I would have like new moon and full moon, and sometimes on the quarters as well, on the half moon times, but it still wasn't a daily practice really, because like when you're in your 20s and you're doing things in your life, I think it's not always easy to have that kind of daily practice. I would try, like I'd start sort of like, I'm going to start to meditate and I'm going to do it every single day, and I'm going to do like half an hour every morning, and then I do it for like a couple of weeks, and then I would not get up that one morning and do it, and so it wouldn't happen. I just kind of fizzle out. And then kind of moving on again then when my children were born, and I felt like I just literally did not have a second. Like I don't even know how you're managing to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
Like mine are much older now, but when they were little, I say much older, they're 11 and 7, but they're not babies anymore.
Yeah.
And in those first few years, and it was just so full on all the time, I just felt like I was permanently on call, just, and it's so exhausting. And during that time, literally my practice was so minimal, because it was just still spirit working, talking to spirits, talking to deity, things like that, but literally while I'm doing other things, like you say, like when you're doing the laundry or when you're cooking and things like that, like literally spellcraft just went out the window, because there just wasn't the time or the space or the energy to be able to do it. So I did used to try, and like when I was feeding my babies when they were little babies and I was breastfeeding them, I would try and use that time as like a kind of spiritual communion time. So I'm quite connected with, I say quite connected with, very connected with the Holy Mother, with the Blessed Virgin Mary. And as I was feeding, I would be talking to her, and kind of telling her all the things that she already knew, like how difficult things are and all that sort of thing, And then now that feels like it was an amazing time as well. It was so wonderful, and it really did break me open and make me much more open to other ways of doing things and stuff as well. So it was wonderful. And not having much time, like before that I thought I didn't have much time, and then when you have a baby you're like, I had so much time before. What was what was I thinking? And I got so much better at using those little tiny bits and pieces and pockets of time that you don't like, that you would just think, I haven't got a whole hour, there's no point in starting doing something. I'd be like, I've got 5 minutes, I can totally do something in this 5 minutes. You just change. Well, I changed my whole way of thinking about a spiritual practice then. And now they're older, and I actually do have an hour every morning, sometimes a bit longer. I get up before them, because they're homeschooled anyway. We stay up quite late, and then they don't get up super early in the morning, so I can easily get up earlier than them and not feel like I'm really tired or anything. So I come down and I do some connection and some praying and some meditation, and it's like the practice I always dreamed that I would have, and now it feels like I'm actually like doing it on the regular. So yeah, it feels really good at the moment.
I feel like I'm gonna burst into tears. I feel so seen and like validated. It's just like motherhood is absolutely magical, but it's the same amount of like absolute chaos. And just like yesterday, so the night before into yesterday, I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. And then about 3 o'clock in the morning, I started to get tired. And then I have a 6 month old and a 1 month old, and or a 1 year old, and they're both teething. And so they started getting up about 3, and we've just been up since then. And so then yesterday at like 5 o'clock in the evening, I just like burst into tears, like making supper for no reason, because of just being so tired, you know. And but yeah, so then it's like everyone is so online. People are like, "Oh, I'm getting ready for my big moon ritual." And I was just like, "Fuck, is it the moon? Is it the moon again?" I'm like, I missed it. And so I'm just like, so literally, I'm just, and yeah, I used to think that like when I was 21, I was busy. And no, I am busy now. And so I'm like, okay, so I just pull some twine out of my pocket and I'm like, here's my knot magic, and we're done. Like, so yeah, definitely you always your practice has to change, and you have to make it work with what time and space and energy that you have. Definitely. So I almost say like I do a lot of like now microwave magic, like just quick and simple. It's like, okay, we're traveling for doctor's appointments. I'm going to, bless the car and put a rune on the back of the car mat, and we're gone. And like that's all the extra energy that I have today between diaper changes and feeding, and like that's it.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't even know how you're even managing to do like a channel and do interviews and stuff like that, because that would have been I would just been like, no, I can't take that on. So yeah, that's huge and amazing. And like I think, like you said, doing those little things as well, you find out that you don't have to spend an hour doing this one thing, because those things are just as effective. So you can put protection on a car in like under a minute. It doesn't have to be a whole thing, you know? So
Yeah.
I think you get more efficient as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. Yeah. You get more creative. Yes,
Mm.
definitely. Um, okay, so tell me, I know nothing about Welsh witchcraft. Tell me a little bit about your Welsh witchcraft and then your traditional also.
Okay, so it's hard to know where to start really, because a lot of the stuff that people think about when they think about Welsh witchcraft, they talk about Celtic witchcraft.
Okay.
Um, with Wales being one of the Celtic nations, there's like Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, well, and Brittany as well, and the north of France, and they're all like Celtic nations. And magic has kind of always been part of the heritage in this country, as it is literally everywhere, obviously. But I think that kind of Celtic magic is the one that got kind of bundled in with Wicca a lot, because a lot of the references and things, especially like the Wheel of the Year and stuff like that, were kind of imported from the Celtic tradition, and with some English stuff as well, into Wicca. And so it's become like a kind of weird, like worldwide witchcraft, but which actually doesn't bear much relation at all to what actually happens in Wales, because like there really isn't very much information about what pagans in Wales believe, because the pagans who lived in Wales 2000 years ago, well, and longer than that, but Christianity has been in Wales a very, very long time. It came in before, like people sort of think of the Romans bringing it in when they came and conquered the British Isles, which was like back in like the 1st century AD, so like almost 2000 years ago. But Christianity had made its way to Britain super early, it was there at the start sort of thing, and the Romans definitely did establish it then like a few centuries later as being the religion, but people were already taking it up in Wales, and there weren't any written records, so there's no history of what pagan Celts and Welsh people would have believed and worshipped. So there's lots of these weird kind of like reconstructionist paths trying to kind of piece things together, and like there's been lots of like absolute rubbish written about Welsh witchcraft and, well, Celtic witchcraft in general. It's like it's still a bit of a thing, but certainly like in the 90s and 2000s, it was like a real big deal to be writing about Celtic witchcraft and stuff like that.
Okay.
So lots of authors were writing books which were, like coming from some of the myths and stuff which exist in Wales and in Ireland, but which they definitely like put their own spin on, but didn't sort of say, this is my own spin. They sort of said, this is Celtic witchcraft, So I think a lot of the the structure of it is kind of confusing. So what I tend to do is try and just listen to the really local spirits, like the local land spirits and stuff like that. And I take what they have to say more so than like books written by English people 20 years ago, you know. So it's kind of piecing things together. And also, like, I do read a lot of like history and stuff, and look at some archaeology and things. I find it all really fascinating. And because of the way Wales was colonized by England, lots of people in Wales now don't speak Welsh. Lots of people still do, but there's about, I think, 3 million or so people in Wales, and like less than 1 million people speak Welsh fluently. And there's lots of people who speak Welsh a little bit. But I want to be able to be fluent in Welsh, because like my great grandmother only spoke Welsh. She didn't speak English. But then it was like forced that you weren't supposed to speak Welsh anymore, but they were told off in school and things like that, and punished. And very similar to what's happening with like Native Americans and stuff. You know, it's the same story. Just you know, it's what works to stamp out people's own indigeneity. So that's what happened. And so the language kind of gradually got picked away at. And so I'm learning that, because I find that even though I can speak to the land spirits in English and they understand, you know, their spirits, I would love to be able to speak to them in Welsh, because that is a very old language. You know, it's not quite the same as the language that was being spoken 2,000 years ago, but it's still quite similar, you know. So I feel like that would be a really powerful thing. So that's what I'm aiming for. I'm sort of fairly conversationally fluent now in Welsh, but not in like ritual or ceremonial speak. You know, I want to be able to be good enough to be able to speak in a kind of poetic way. So, because it's such a poetic language as well. There's just words for really cool. You know, like they say about people who live in countries where there's loads of reindeer have like loads and loads of different words for reindeer and for snow.
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
like that. And it's the same in Wales. You know, there's like loads and loads of words for rock, because there's like this specific rock when it's wet and things like, you know, it's just got so much richness to it that I'm really, it's going to take ages, but I will get there in the end.
I think it's really beautiful how people are reaching back and reconnecting to that, you know, the original earth and path, you know, before being colonized, or, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's really beautiful, like people trying to find that. And yeah, it's sad. It's sad that, you know what I mean, that there's like that, you know, missing puzzle piece for a lot of us, that to our history and to our, you know, yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that translates into people feeling like they have to find the truth of what people in the past did. And I was definitely like, I had a phase where I was like that, definitely, where I was like looking into loads of archaeology and stuff like that, and I want to find the truth of what my ancestors practiced, you know. But I feel like I've kind of moved into a space now where I'm actually just more interested in finding what is true for now.
Yeah.
And like, what's an authentic way to practice now, here, as I am, you know, and rather than sort of feeling like there's a piece that I definitely can't have, you know, anymore.
Yeah, and I think you could probably drive yourself crazy, you know, trying to find, like, if you were really fixated on, I need to find the absolute truth and I need to, you know, what they were doing rather than, you know, what feels right and supports you right now and right here. And then maybe just focusing on, you know, maybe people can focus on connection, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really cool. It's like very exciting. Okay, so do you have any like deities that you work with?
Yeah, I do. I work quite a lot, like I said, with some of the Christian deities. So I work with the Virgin Mary and with the Christ,
Okay.
who, and like the way I work with them is very much in the tradition of it being a parent and a child that carries on with the world, you know. So like going back to ancient Egypt, you know, when we have Isis and Horus, and it's the same story, you know, that's kind of coming with that as well. So I work with them in that in that understanding. I was going to say in that way, but or that archetype. I don't work with them as archetypes. I work with them as personified beings. You know, they are. I probably should say more. They work with me as personified beings, but yeah. So that's quite a big deal, and they've been with me always. I also work with Rhiannon, who for me is she's a Welsh. Well, she's a Welsh mythical character. We don't know that she was a goddess, although you know you'll see it in books that she's a goddess. Yeah. But there's no actual evidence, you know, we don't know that. But she, for me, she comes in as almost like, you know, like how the Virgin Mary has lots of different names for all the different like aspects of her.
Yeah.
You know, like sort of Our Lady of Sorrows or Our Lady of all, well, or everything basically you could possibly want a lady of, you can, you know, she covers it all. And Rhiannon for me is an aspect of that same kind of mother deity. So she, so her and Mary are kind of almost the same person, but Rhiannon is like a specific aspect and personality of that kind of composite person, which is the Divine Mother. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, yeah, it does. And yeah, I have heard of her, I guess, but I kind of thought that's funny that you say that there's no proof of that, because the stuff that I've read was just like, yep, she is a goddess. Like, and so I was like, yep, she is a goddess. Like, you know, because I'm not, yeah, okay. That's good to know.
She is. I think she is, because the way she presents herself is very much like that. But like usually with she comes up in the like Welsh myths and stuff, but there's not a lot of like archaeology to show that people like on the ground were actually worshipping her or anything like that, you know. And like the Celts, it seems like didn't technically like worship their deities either. They were more like they lived with them. It was a much more personal relationship than a like a kind of it was devoted, but it was like devoted like you are to the people that you love and to your ancestors and things like that. It wasn't like a oh, you up high and me down here low kind of relationship, it seems like, you know.
Yeah.
We don't really know, again, because there's not really good evidence. Like a lot of the stuff that's written about Celtic things are from authors like Roman authors when they came over and conquered, what they were seeing from the outside, you know. We don't actually have the story from the inside. So yeah, it's piecing things together.
So anything can be magic, whether it's, you know, you can set intention for what color you wear or what makeup you put on, or when you're cooking food, anything can be magic. Just from watching your channel, I feel like you create a lot of magic through like writing and singing and like, what else? I shouldn't tell you, but it feels magical, like when you're opening, when you sing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really do. Like, I love that whole everyday magic thing, you know. It's like, because it's everyday magic, as in like it just folds into the everyday, and like you can do it every day because it's just doing things that you were already doing anyway. It doesn't add any extra time or inconvenience to your day. You're already going to get dressed, you're already going to make food, you know. So it's easy to weave it in, and I think that a lot of that came when I had children, because that was the only way that it kind of got woven in. But yeah, definitely stories for me so much, because a lot of what I actually do, like at my altar and stuff, is story based, you know, and songs as well, singing, and even just like humming, just sound in general, you know. I find really unblock stuff for me. Like I really love if I can have like a sound bath and stuff. Have you ever done that? That just, it feels like, you know, like I've had loads of different treatments and stuff like that, because I love all that kind of thing as well. You know, I'll try anything. But sound, I was so amazed with the sound bath. It literally just felt so cleansing and just uplifting in like such an amazing way, much more so than I would have thought before going in. And I've done a few since then, and I've had the same experience, you know. It's just really, really, so sound is amazing, words are amazing. I do, whenever I'm using herbs in cooking or in spellcraft, then I'll always like speak to them.
Yeah.
Like, because they are an ally, you know. It's not, we're not using it as an ingredient, we're asking for it to work with us, you know. So it's like you know, oh, Basil, you are so fresh and so fragrant, you know, and I would love it for you to add your kind of magic of good luck and vibrancy to this dish, you know, things like that. And like I do say it out loud if I'm on my own, but most of the time I'll just kind of say it in my head as I'm doing it. And like the kids don't think it's weird now, they also do it. So so yeah, it's just normal.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I don't know, it's just I keep having the weirdest realizations, which, you know, we're always like everything is magical, everything is magical. But just with so like yeah, sound baths are amazing in like sound healing. And but the other day I was like, you know, for me, the most like therapeutic thing is like if I can get in the car and go for a drive and listen to music. But I was like, that's also magical. Like that short drive to the grocery store with, you know, listening to your favorite songs, or because they can literally hearing a certain song can transport you back to a time or space or person, or you know what I mean. And it really is like that's, and I was just like, gosh, that is magic for me. That is a part of, you know what I mean. But it's just, yeah, it's funny realizations like that yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like music and like people, it's not just certain types of music that are spiritual. I feel like all music speaks to us it speaks straight to that like divine part of ourselves. So it doesn't have to be like church music or like new age type music or drumming or, you know, whatever it is that speaks to you. Like the kids laugh at me because I literally cry at everything. And if I listen to music in the car, I always cry just because you don't get the time to focus on it so much in the house if you're listening to music. And then when you're in the car, you know, you're just driving and the scenery and the music and it just washes over you. And I always cry. And then they're like, you're crying again, Mum. I'm like, I know.
I know. Oh my gosh.
But it's lovely because I can feel it moving me, you know. You feel that movement inside you, that kind of divine movement. And it's just, and like we have so much music in the house because my husband's a musician as well. And
Oh,
like
I didn't know that.
yeah, and like he's more kind of like almost heavy metal-y type music. And but he also writes like acousticy stuff and things as well. So it's there's music all the time, and sometimes I'm like, right, I've had enough, I can't listen to. There's definitely certain sorts of music that I can listen to for like a period of time, and then I'm like, I just can't anymore, because I think because it's such an intense experience, it feels overwhelming then for me, you know. I've got to be like, right, I need to shut that down now. And I didn't used to be so bad with that before, but now my boundaries are much more like, nope, I need to turn this off now, I need to turn it down, I can't have it like blasting loud like I would have had it when I was a bit younger and stuff. I'm like that old woman going, turn your music down.
Oh my gosh.
It's not fun to think.
um I used to, I mean, I always feel like I'm weird, I always feel like I don't fit in. And but what I used to be like when I was younger, well, and I still have this, I built this playlist a long time ago, but it's literally a playlist of sad music. And I was like, and it's labeled like sad music, and it's just like 40 of the saddest songs that you've ever heard. And my husband was like, what is wrong with you? And now that I'm older, I'm like, literally, I'm like, it was helping me process and get sadness out. Like I could, you know, whatever it was I was carrying, because I don't filter emotions that well, or because I'm like, I have so many other things to do that like this just has to go in this compartment until I can deal with it. And then I could go sit down with my sad playlist and literally flush all of that sadness out. And so yeah, it's just a part of magic, and it's healing, and it's not weird. And I actually just recently met someone that was like, well, I'm really busy. She's a nurse, and so nurses, you know, they're essential and they're always busy, whether there's a pandemic or not a pandemic. But she's like, she's like, you know, I work 12-hour shifts, and you know, I have a family, and she's like, I'm so busy. So she's like, I have the weekend off, so I'm gonna watch The Notebook because it's like a really sad movie. And she's like, I cry, and then she's like, I feel better, and I'm done, and it's like flushed and cleansed. And I'm like, wow, like that's really neat.
Yeah, I definitely use movies like that as well. Yeah. it's just cathartic, isn't it? You know, you can tag on all of those things onto the onto the storyline of it's story again, isn't
Yeah.
it? The music is
Yes.
story, the movie's a story, and you can pour your stuff onto that story and let it all be resolved and fleshed out. Like you said, I love that. Yeah, that's a really good way of describing it.
Well, yeah, and I didn't even think until you just said that like movies and songs they're all stories. So that's really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like we just think in stories as humans. We think in thoughts, but like stories are what we hook into and what kind of guide us and direct our lives. I feel like anyway. I certainly feel for me that is true. You know, it's we're not. I'm not as rational as supposedly humans are, and I see in lots of other people that they're not as rational as humans supposedly are either.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I feel like a lot of times we feel like disconnected from the norm or what is, supposed to be, but when you get down to it, it's not weird and you're not out of place. It's yeah, everyone finds their own way to be and to support themselves, which is why witchcraft looks so different for all different people based on, again, not only what you need, what you enjoy, but, if you have several children or how much time you have, or if you have a demanding job or, if you don't have the space, it just, yeah, it is very flexible and fits in all these different containers differently. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's so wonderful, isn't it? That it is, and even for the same person through their life, it will change so much. And I just think that's amazing. And it also, I feel like that's one of the things that can be not a stumbling block, but like it can be a bit daunting when you first start out because, like, if you go into an established religion, it's all laid out for you, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like we say this prayer, then we sing this song, and then we do, it's like, and so you're doing it right because you've got that format to follow. Whereas if you, especially, if you're in a coven, I suppose you get some of that as well. But when you're solitary, you are just making it up as you go along. And like later on you think this is amazing, that's wonderful, I can make it up as I go along and it's valid. But I remember feeling, and I see, like, when I see other people also sort of saying this kind of thing, that it feels they're worried that it's not valid because they're making it up as they go along, especially when you're
Yeah.
first starting out, because yeah, it does feel weird, even if you use like a ritual from a book or something and you're like
Mm-hmm.
reading out parts and stuff, and it's like, oh god, is this just a bit like, yeah,
Yeah.
is this really real, or am I kind of making it all up and stuff like that? It can feel strange. So, but yeah, if you lean into it and just enjoy that weirdness and how it kind of all just it does. You find the path kind of comes as you walk it. I see a lot of people like looking for their path to start when they start, and like I totally understand, because I feel like you said, especially when you are aware of like more occult things, you feel like, I think all humans feel a bit like disconnected and a little bit like they're a bit of a weirdo. But I feel like people who are drawn to the occult are probably even more so, because
Yeah.
sometimes we have knowledge of things that or experiences of things that would make you weird if you spoke to people about it,
Yep.
so um we've taken that kind of natural human worry about, do I fit in, to like a whole other level, because like we actually don't. And then when you want to kind of find your path, because then you can think, right now this is this group of people who are showing me what it is that I want to do, so like, am I a crystal witch or am I a green witch, all this kind of thing, because then if I've got a path to follow. But it's not until you actually start walking that you figure out the path, it's kind of like a chicken and an egg kind of situation.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that was the most beautiful explanation, and it really It really is, you know, because when I started, I was just like, okay, I did this exactly by the book, but like I don't feel anything, or maybe I didn't do it right the way the author did, or maybe I'm just not as magical, or like maybe I'm just an asshole. Like, I don't know, you know, just like I mean, and it was. And then also, yeah, like we just didn't have the same information, which, you know, I am thankful for all the new things. I just bought a like a witch ABC book called C is for Coven for my baby, which is like a hard ABC book that's like, yeah, C is for Coven and I is for intention and R is for ritual and like all this stuff. And so, but we just, yeah, when I was younger, we didn't have that. But um yeah, definitely like feeling weird, like just in general. And then tack that on with like being younger or in your teens or in your early 20s, and then you're still like figuring out like who you are and you're still really growing, and then tack that on with like just going from like here's your religion and this is what it is to like here's witchcraft, and you just stumble around out here until yeah, until something really sticks with you. So yes, that was probably, I've never heard it put as eloquently as that. That's exactly summing up everything, at least that I went through, for sure.
Oh, good. I'm glad it made sense. Yeah, that's how I felt and how I kind of see it definitely now. And it is vast, isn't it, now? The kind of and I think because of the way like history has made all magic witchcraft, because you know anything that wasn't Christian doctrine was witchcraft.
Witchcraft.
So
Yep.
now it's a huge category. You know, there's just so much, like any kind of divination.
Yep.
It's witchcraft, and healing. It must be witchcraft. You know, it's such a massive category. Then no wonder it's, and like you know, some people come to it when they're younger, some people don't come to it until they're older, because it's like it takes them that amount of time before they allow, or before maybe they might like have like a realization experience and be like, wow, this, you know, something weird happens, and so they kind of start off on that. But most of the time I find with people it's just that like they gradually realize that there's more in the world than they've been kind of led to believe, and so it's like, hang on, there's a whole more world out there. And then when you start looking into it, it's like there's this huge world out there of all these amazing things to kind of learn and try and stuff. And like, yeah, that's really fun. But also it's like, I'm never going to get all this done. I'm never going to be able to do all the things.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I definitely want to tell people that that's totally valid. Like, it's okay. There's things that I absolutely don't do. There's things that I've tried that I was no good at and didn't work out for me. And that's totally okay. You don't have to do everything, especially for new people coming in.
Yeah.
um, I just always, and I'll ask you, I guess, what you think the best advice. I always just tell people to follow one thing that really calls to them and just go that direction, because usually more doors, it leads you to something else usually.
Exactly. Start, because if you just read and read and read and read and read, it almost paralyzes you, and you're too afraid to kind of do anything. And people are afraid, especially because of like people are so emphasizing on like protection and things like that, and making sure you do it right, because if you do it wrong, then terrible things are going to happen to you and your family. And so it puts people off actually just starting. And I think that's why I think a lot more teenagers and stuff do get into it, because then, you know, when you're a teenager, you're not afraid of anything. So you're just like, I'm just going to do it. You know, you don't, and you're like, I'll try it. Whereas when you're older, sometimes it's like, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't do this until I've learned a bit more about this. And so people will read for years and years and years and won't actually. So like, yeah, I'd say do a spell or do a ritual, do something that definitely feels a little bit uncomfortable, but not you know, overwhelmingly uncomfortable, but just choose something that's definitely outside of your comfort zone, and then see what happens, because feedback comes almost straight away. And then like you say, then once you like do a little thing, it's like, well, okay, I like that and this happened, but I didn't quite like that, and so now next time I'll do it like this. Or, and that I tend to do that as well if I'm doing anything I don't do a lot of like ceremonial magic or like magic from books or spells from books or anything like that. But if I do try and follow them as they are, first of all, unless it's like I haven't got a thing that I need or something like that, you know, in which case I'll have to adapt it a bit. But it's kind of like when you're cooking as well, isn't it? It's like if you're going to make a recipe, then it's usually best to try and do it as it is in the book, first of all, unless you really can't because you haven't got a particular ingredient or something like that. And then the next time you can eat it and be like, yeah, okay, but it needed a little bit more sourness, you know, so next time I'll do it a little bit like this. And I think it's like that. You adjust as you go and taste as you go and figure it out, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. And you guys, I will put Jessica's all of her information so you can connect with her on social media and on YouTube as well. But do you have any resources or books that really helped you on your path, or any learning tips or tricks that you want to give people today?
I don't have a specific book or anything like that that I recommend at the moment. Just because I don't feel like there's a I'm not reading a lot of beginner books at the moment. I'm excited for Kellyanne's book. When that comes out, I've pre-ordered that. I'm hoping that, and from the sound of it, her publisher have made it a little bit more beginnery. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a really good resource for beginners.
And I think that's Rebel Witch, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
That sounds like it's going to be really cool, doesn't it? I think don't read too much. Just pick on something. Like even if it's literally like something off Pinterest, a spell off Pinterest. If you've got something that's going wrong, then just do that. Or if it's something, choose something kind of safe. Like if you want to bring more of something into your life, you know, then you can do a spell for that and just see how it goes from there. Just try something rather than like reading. And not that I'm against that, I'm not. I love reading and I love all the research and everything like that, but just I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the resources like we were saying before, and like YouTube is amazing because you can actually see people's practices as well. Like people will show them doing a ritual and things like that, but you do have to kind of be a little bit discerning as well. And with the books, it's not just on social media, you know, and there's a lot of bullshit written in books as well, so you do have to kind of just feel in your heart, is this like the right thing? And you will get the answer, and then you'll know that whether to do a certain thing or not. So it hasn't really answered your question, so I'm saying like
No,
don't read any of the things, don't use the resources. Do the opposite, just literally do your own thing.
Which, no, I mean, that's totally good. And some people need that. It's almost like some people need that permission to just go and be, and like, yeah, it's okay. So, I mean, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. You guys definitely check out her channel and all of her information. It'll be linked below, and we will be back for another trial of Witch Hunt. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thanks so much. That was really cool.